Okay, for question 14, it says shade half of the squares. So we need to fill in, first of all, that there's a line right here. That's a bit thick. Let's try and make that smaller. Okay, so shade half of the squares and write 2 fractions and 2 decimals to show 1/2. So if we're going to shade it in, I'm going to color this in. I'm going to shade half of my squares. And if I were to count that, I know that this is 100 squares, so there's 50 that are colored in. So to write it as a fraction, we would write 1/2, which is equal to how many tenths? Well, we've got let's use a different color. We've got 1/10, 2/10, 3/10, 4/10, 5/10. So 1/2 is equivalent to 5/10. Or how many of these hundreds are colored in? Well, I'll use a different color to represent our hundredths. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. So it would be equivalent, and those would be all, if I were counting each and every one of them, but we don't have to do that. So that would also be equivalent to 50 hundredths. Okay, so how would we write that as a decimal? Well, 5/10 in the tenths place would be 0 in our ones, and 5 would be in our tenths place. And if it was 50 over 100, we would write it as 0.50 as our placeholder in our hundredths. Okay, so those are worth the same as each other. So pause your video and you can do question 14 and question 15, which is a fifth, which works similarly. Okay? Okay, so number 16, we're going to write equivalent fractions. So this was 14. So 16 says write equivalent fractions. So for A, we have 2/5 equals something tenths equals something 100th. So how do we get from there to there? Well, we're going to multiply by 2. So we do the same thing to the top. So that would be 4/10. And how do we get from there to there? Well, we times by 10. So it will be 40 hundredths. So you can pause the video and do A, B, and C. Okay, for number 17, we're going to need 100 square again. I'll get my 100 square from here. And I'll move it down here. I might make it smaller. Okay, so it says shade 1/4 of the squares. So I'm going to use my purple again. And I'm going to cut this into 4ths. And it says to shade 1/4. So I'm only going to be shading in 1/4 of the shape. Okay. So 1/4 would be the same as how many hundredths? So how many hundredths are shaded in? Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. So 25 hundredths. How would we write our fraction for 3/4? Well, we'd have to figure out what's this section, and this section's worth to find out what the numerator is. And then for our decimal, well, we would write this like 0.25 because that's in the hundredths place. And we would do the same thing for our 3/4 once you know that. Okay, so I'll let you finish number 17. Okay, and then pause the video and we'll go on to number 18. So circle the greater number. Hint, first change all your fractions and your decimals to fractions with a denominator 100 or 1000. Okay, so 18A. So if we have 1/2 and we have 0.51, well, we know that it says to change all the fractions and decimals to fractions, but I think it would be easier. We know that this is worth 0.50 and 0.51. So which one is greater? This one. Or we can change this to we can change this one to hundredths. So it would be 2 times 50, so it would be 50 over 100, and this would be 51 over 100. So you could do either or. Okay, so try that for B and C. B might be tricky, so let's do it together. If you have 4/5, we want to make the bottom number hundredths. So 5 times what makes 100? Well, 5 times 20. So 4 times 20 would be 80. And then our 0.85 would change to 85 over 100. Okay? So you can do question 18 now. And then for 19, 20, and 21, just you need to change them into either all fractions or all decimals. Okay? And that should take you to the end of the page. Have fun!